10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. So, we are on our Wednesday second part of our lesson 7. In lesson 7, we are focusing on discovered attack. So, again, we've went through a lot of things from lessons 1 through 6. We probably should do a recap when we finish the opening. I'm anticipating finishing the opening in probably about 5 or 6 lessons. We do one lesson per week, so it's a while to go. And the reason it's going to take a while is because we have a lot of tactics and targets to talk about, and I'll talk about finding them. Perhaps after this week, I'll start doubling up some of the tactics. There are a few. And then targets is a long conversation also, but we are restricting it to the opening. But these things happen throughout the game. So as in our first example, we have a game here that we're going to show you. And in this game, it's actually in the middle game, right? Both players are fully developed. They're equal in hardware, big pieces, but black is down one pawn. So the game is tight, only down a pawn, and black is looking for a discovered attack. Perhaps we should keep discovered attack as far as finding a tactic to the middle game. So I think we're bleeding over when we start talking about tactics and targets because it's definitely not restricted to the opening. In fact, tactics and targets should be included in both middle game and the end game. So it, like free candy, goes across all three phases of the game. Free candy we should be looking for opening, middle game, and end game, and we should make sure that we don't leave free candy at any time, and that we take it when it's available, if it's safe, but at all three phases. So there are some things that are specific to the opening, but free candy is not one of them. Determining why your opponent made the move they did, it's not restricted to the opening. Development and king safety in the opening is strictly for the opening, because once we're finished with development or mostly developed, we will transition into the middle game. And king safety is important in the middle game, but it's fluid. And in the end game, our king, we no longer really worry about king safety. No back rank mates, please. But we actually make our king an active player in the attack. So that changes. Chasing the queen or the king, that's valid in any phase again, right? You can chase the king or queen. Now, in the opening, chasing the king or the queen for the purpose of expediting or expediting our development, that is a specific opening focus. So that one makes sense. Chasing the king or queen in order to gain tempo and speed, expedite your development. But then in all three phases, we have finding tactics and finding targets. So I've convinced myself after this week, I'm going to change our chart up above, and we're going to review just what is opening only. And then we're just going to talk finding tactics and targets without referring back to the rest of the items on this list, because we're really already into the middle game. And most of the examples we find for discovered attack for this specific tactic is found in the middle game to end game. Sometimes you get them in the opening, but it's rarer, much rarer, because it's more rare that you can put your own pieces in the way to create a discovered attack. And so we'll see that example. So I'll change that by next week. We'll just change this part up here where we're focusing on different topics. So in this game, it is black's move, and black is looking for, like, how do I make this work, right? How do I get this to work? Previously, let's just look. White had checked black. Remember, they're equal pieces, and white was willing to give up the knight for the pawn because of the attack that he anticipates coming in with the queen, and thinking that black will not be able to survive, right? Especially with a pawn sitting here, it's going to make it hard for black to get the king away. Too many this square would be taken away, and these squares are blocked, and this square is not taken away, but still. So black decided not to go into the trade, and instead he moved his king here. White moved his knight here, and then black had an idea. Black saw a possibility for a discovered attack and to win a pawn and an exchange in the process. But it didn't really work out. So I'm showing this one first because it was a little errant thinking, but I like the attempt. I like the concept. I like the fact that he was looking for the discovered attack. So he starts off by trading the pawn in the center. And then this is where he gets tricky, dangerous, risky, but you got to like it, right? Because he tries to do something special and use the discovered attack to his benefit. And he takes this pawn. And he takes this pawn, enticing white to take, which white does. And then he unleashes the discovered attack. So the discovered attack on the queen. And so just to remind us about it and how is it defined and how does it work, basically we move our piece out of the way to allow another piece to attack. Now, if this were a white piece, it would be pinned. So that's why we're doing it right now after the pin, is because it's kind of like you have a pin on your own piece, and where normally the pin, you don't want to move the piece because you'd lose something of greater value. We want to move and hopefully attack something of greater value at the same time and gain material, right? So the idea is we gain material. So the attempt is, we have a discovered attack on the queen, and most of the time when you do a discovered attack, it actually blends into another tactic, a double attack, right? Attacking two things at once. So we're attacking the knight, the rook, and the queen. So most times when you do a discovered attack, you want to attack something else also. And just imagine if you could be discovering a check, then this bishop, if it could be attacking a queen and the rook was checking you, you're going to win the queen. So that's usually what you're trying to do. And it does turn out most of the time to be including a double attack. So we are actually hitting more than one tactic at the moment. Okay. So it doesn't work though, and it doesn't work for a couple of reasons. One, it doesn't work. White has an out. White can get out of the discovered attack with a check. So that complicated matters, right? So we're in trouble because we're in check. And so the check has to, remember, this is one of those times you can do something in between. And so white could throw in a check, black decide to block, we have a trade of queens. And then right now, white is up a full piece. And this is part of the problem. The white is up a full piece. So even if there was not a trade of queens and the queen had just ran away, right? Even if the queen just ran away, by the way, of course, white should still not give up there's no reason for white to give up the exchange here. So even if white had just moved the queen away, it would have still only been an exchange at that point. And if, as you see, white would still have a knight and a bishop against a rook, right? So that's still a problem. So the rook could have just moved, could have moved here if he wanted to, try to get a trade of rooks, and he would have just been up a full knight. Now it'll be where he's up a knight and a bishop versus a rook. But the concept, the idea of sacrificing towards this discovered attack definitely should be considered for momentum. Another way to look at it, this pawn could be pinned if we moved our bishop. So wouldn't it be nice if the bishop were on the outside of that knight? So he could move over here, maybe an attack here. But the bishop could just drop away. And now we're threatening to win this material because the pawn is pinned, right? We could take, but if the pawn were to take back, the queen would be lost. So that's another way to play through this, is another idea that LLMP could have had, that's who was playing this game. Hey, Chris, how's it going? We would want to do that, right? We take here to be able to get that attack going. So that's just another way to look at it. He could have even tried the same attempt from here, but he has the same problem that he's still giving away 2 pieces for the rook and the pawn. The check would have stopped the problems again, and no matter how black decided to respond, the rook could just get moved, and so it's not really a threat in that sense. So it was a good try, though. I really liked the try enough that I thought we can use it to demonstrate the first thing. Hey, hey. All right, here's another one, and this one actually is Chris. Glad you can make it. And this one is from your game, and it's with Keith Love. And Keith is white, and Keith is already down a whole piece. Right, he's down a whole knight. The only saving grace that he's also down pawns. He's also down 2 pawns and a knight, so he's losing. And there was free candy issues maybe before, but we're using this as an example of a discovered attack. A rare discovered attack because the king is going to be the piece making the discovered attack. But anyway, so this knight is the only piece that is not developed for black. And because this knight has not been developed, that rook has no play. That rook is out of the game. So if this were earlier in the middle game, this white might have winning chances just because 2 pieces are out of play. So while white is down a knight, and I'm sorry, white is down a rook. Bad count. Although white is down a rook, in reality, until this knight moves, white is up a bishop, right? He has a rook that can play, and he has a bishop that can play, while black only has a rook that's playing. But the problem is that we're late in the middle game. We're going to the end game. You can almost say we're in the end game. And so black will have time to get this piece out of the way, and he'll be up a full rook. But white finds a tactic, and it happens because black first decides to possibly try to trap this bishop. You think about it, the bishop only had that diagonal, and he didn't have this square because of the rook. But now the bishop has nothing on this side, can't go that way. And so now the bishop can only go this way. This square and this square are no good. So he's only down to 2 squares that bishop can go to. And if white does nothing about it, black can push this pawn, and black can step up here and say, free bishop, thank you very much. Or after he pushes this pawn, he could move the knight out here, and the rook would be hitting him. So black could win another piece. I think that's why black, and Chris, sometime you could tell me later, because Chris was black. Oh, okay, that was exactly what you were thinking. We think alike. We can see it. So yeah, this was an attempt to trap the bishop. No problem. The only thing, if I was teaching Chris, and I hope that he doesn't mind that I presume to help him and teach him a little bit, is that being up a whole piece, the rook being the piece he's totally up, he could just develop the knight. And he could develop it here with an attack on the bishop, or he can do it here with an attack on the bishop, which is risky, but fine. And the idea is that if the bishop were to trade, you just made it simpler on yourself. You're still up 2 pawns and a rook, and you're happy to trade because when we're ahead in material, trade pieces, not pawns. So white's job, being behind in material, wants to keep the bishop and the rook on the board as long as he can and trade off these pawns. Because if he's only down a rook, he might get lucky, and if he can, he might survive. But if it's a rook and a king against a king, he's probably going to lose anyway. If that's all there is, it should be a fundamental loss. But anyway, so black pushes the pawn to trap the bishop, and white sets up a discovered attack. Right? So the king moves, then the king will be in check. And the king can move anywhere he wants off of that file to create that discovered attack. Now, obviously, it's better to move toward the rook and be threatening the rook. So he should be able to win the rook if he can step away with check. So at this point, black needs to either get out of the discovered check or move the rook far enough away, maybe by taking this pawn, so that if he does move his king, he won't be able to attack the rook. And that's why I said this is a rare discovered attack, because it's with a king. I mean, how often does a king move out of the way to create a discovered attack on a different piece? Pretty rare. And how often is it that the king can move you to make it worth using the discovered attack, right? Just like we don't want to say checks just for the sake of saying check. We don't want to do a discovered attack. Plus, I don't know. Again, if you're still trying to trap the bishop, a move like this would have been possibly better. But white gets to unleash the discovered attack. He got some play, he got the rook, and now look, these two pieces are still locked in, and now it's equal. Bishop and rook against knight and rook. It is equal, ladies and gentlemen. And so white was able to, except for the pawn, still a two-pawn deficit, so he's still losing, was able to come back with using the discovered attack. Pretty exciting. Knight gets developed. Remember, white now is down 2 pawns. He still wants to trade off pawns, not pieces, but now at least he's in the game much better. And that bishop is kind of trapped, but he could leave it there, right? Because the king can't take, and the king can't get out of the way, and this pawn is in his way, so the king can't get out of the way. So that rook can't even attack him. He could just leave it there and maybe start getting his king active into the endgame. Doesn't want to go here, of course. Check, blocking the rook and losing the bishop. All right, but he trades, and now the problem is that white is down 2 pawns, and black can take his time almost and get going. A basic move here is the king up because it takes away 3 squares from the rook. The rook only has a couple of files that he could play on, right? This one is hitting into a pawn, so he has this open file and he has this open file. So we could start off because really the rook coming here doesn't hurt us, and the king does protect these 2 squares. So now the best square is for the rook to come here to take over the only other open file, right? So we look, take. So instead of moving up here, white really should have tried to maybe take the only open file that's available. And so now if black did take over the open file, and now we try to get in, right? Try to get in at the black king, but the king can come here and protect all 3 of these squares, and that's no. But we didn't. We went here, and the game went on. All right, last one. Last one. We're going to look for discovered attack possibilities. So this was a game against one of my students, and we're playing by the principles only center moves. So I've also sometimes people ask, well, if I can only move my center pawns in the opening, except for provoke, unless I'm provoked, don't I, what openings am I playing? Well, there's a lot of openings. As you guys have seen in the past, we play a lot of E4 openings, right? And so from here, you can get the Ruy Lopez. You can get the Italian game. You can get the 4 knights. I prefer you develop the bishop first, but you can get the 4 knights. You can transpose into other openings. So you have all those choices. Let's see, black didn't have to respond with knight here. You could play I believe this is the Petrov systems, which includes the Stafford Gambit. If you've watched any of Eric Rosen's, you can play his Stafford Gambit because it still fits with only moving the center pawns. So you have a slew of openings there. And then I thought for fun against my student, I would play a D4 opening. I don't think I've ever played a D4 opening. I know I haven't in a rated over the board match, in tournaments. I've never played D4. I'm always an E4 player. I also play weird openings like birds. I'll play birds a lot. I've played the orangutan once. I played, knight comes out first and doing a king's Indian attack. But D4, I cannot remember ever playing a rated game in a tournament. But this is online rated, right? So it's a little different. And actually, this one was casual. We were doing, this one is actually in a simul. I was giving a simul in class last night where I played everybody at one time, and we made it nice long 30 minutes plus 5 seconds, and it didn't last anything near there. Yeah, Indian systems, Yoko piano. Yeah, there's so many choices that you can do and still keep to the rule of moving only your center pawns unless provoked. Now, that said, normally I teach when you play the D4 openings, which we're not doing openings yet, but when I teach it and we're doing d4 openings, I definitely prefer this pawn. This pawn wants to be forward and the knight be behind it. We don't want to block it in with the knight, but there are systems where the knight is here. So anyway, so one of the openings you could play is the London, and so I basically playing the London, but again, I don't play this opening very much. And so I was looking that before I moved the pawn here, I was thinking, this reminds me of the opposite side of like the fried liver attack. Am I going to be able to survive if he goes here and attacking my pawn? How am I going to protect it? But I thought, if that were to happen, then I could just do this option, which happens a lot, and it backward protects, and then I'll finish developing wherever I want that to go. I'll finish developing, castle, and then I can push this, or I can push the pawn even earlier, right? I can push it possibly earlier because the bishop is helping hold that square. Got to always remember that pawn is hitting that square. So when I put the question to the knight, that square matters. But anyway, he didn't do that. He kept developing, which was good. He should be. And I decided to pin the knight. And then I doubled up as fast as I could on a pinned piece. Good rule, right? If you have a piece pinned, double, triple, just keep loading up on it. Load up on that piece as much as you can. So I did. He put the question to the bishop, and then I made a mistake. So here, if it's on the king's side that we have the king's knight pinned, then when we would do the same thing and our knight would be sitting here on d5, when we take, it's check. But I just kind of like phased out and said, okay, well, I'll take with the knight first. If he takes my knight, I take with the bishop, and I've got a fork, right? I get the fork. So if I take, he takes, you get the fork, and you get the rook, and the king is in check, so you win a rook, right, for a bishop. That just looks good, right? Yeah. But we always have to remember that he doesn't have to take. He could take this way. But if he takes that way, he loses the queen. So we're still thinking we're good. But either of those two things have to happen. He could just move the queen. And so he does. And he allows a discovered attack. This knight moves somewhere, anywhere, right? He gets a free attack on the queen. And look, an attack on the king behind it. But the problem with both of these is the same problem, is the piece that's doing the attacking on the discovered attack, it's being attacked. So this knight would have to find some place where it can, like, say, check, because without moving with check, the bishop can just be lost. And while the knight went here and attacks the queen, it doesn't work because if he took this way, it would work, but he shouldn't, right? He's going to just take the queen, because that was the other thing. The queen could take, where usually when you do this against the king, of course, the king can't take long range. So that was the mistake. So what would have been better at this point when the question was put? Because we're still looking at winning material. You take with the bishop. And with a forced check, he takes or blocks. And if he blocks, he just lost a free piece. So he takes, you take, you don't get a check. You're attacking the queen. Queen can move anywhere it wants, right? Maybe here. No, it can't go there. So the queen moves wherever he wants, and the knight can go back safely. Queen can then change and go someplace else, like maybe attack this pawn. So that's how the game should have went, but I did not play it correctly. I took with the knight, and then my opponent did a very good job, my student. And yep, I moved the knight. He takes the bishop, and now he's attacking free candy here. So we moved the free candy out of the way, so it's no longer free candy. And he could have thrown in a check, which would have been okay. Wouldn't have been a check for nothing, because it would have helped develop his bishop. But I could have pushed the pawn, and we could have went through some interesting gyrations. One interesting setup could be push the pawn, and he could have said, well, I'll just take you. Because if I take you, right, and you take back, then I get to win a pawn. And of course, we don't want to take with the queen, because then when he takes back, he gets the fork here. So we would have to take with the rook, he would take, and he'd get a free piece, and I'm dead, right? My king can't move to white, the queen would have to block, and so we're dead. So the other choice would be don't take the bishop at all and take here. Queen could take though. So right now, where are we at? We're at the same material, but I'm starting to hemorrhage my position and the pawns are not looking good. But here I can block, right, to save myself. Now the queen is free candy and the bishop is free candy. So he has to do something. He would take, and then the bishop can run away and he'd be fine. It could go here, could go here. And looking at it, I'm down where I had a chance to be up a free pawn earlier. I am actually down a pawn. Now, do you lament it? No, you just figure, hey, I have the only file for rooks to play on, so I would try to get my rooks moving. By the way, there is another discovered attack, and it's when this knight moves, the bishop would hit that pawn. So, for an example, push on the bishop. Let's say the bishop says, well, if I go here, it's just going to push another pawn, so he goes here. I can take, not with check, but I take, well, black should take back, and that was a discovered attack on the pawn. So it could win the pawn back. Excellent. So a lot of opportunities already to show how you could do a discovered attack. But we get another opportunity. So this would have been a very dynamic move, I think, for black. I would like to see my students trying those kind of moves. The bishop here with check, especially with that bishop breaking down here. It just feels really good. Like really good things could happen for black if he went for that check. But he didn't. He went here. And we attacked the queen and I couldn't castle because the queen was hitting the squares. So here we go. And the pawn could take, but the pawn would be able to take back because the knight is actually holding it. And of course, the queen is more important than the knight at the moment. So we do get a check and we get a please take my queen and let's trade. We do. Don't take back with the king, although you could. Again, you can centralize your king when you know you're going to get to the end game quicker. But my knight also hadn't been developed yet, and we want to develop our knight, so we did. Also, this helps protect this pawn, so even if this gets traded, we still have the knight holding the pawn, and the knight doesn't do a bad job of protecting here. But we're going to find ourselves with another discovered attack. Where is, oh, yes. All right, so this game gets really interesting. So we're almost fully developed. Black could castle, even though the bishop is hitting here, because there's no king going through that square. So black could castle queenside. Black could say, I'm not going to castle and just sit here. But instead, black says, I don't like this bishop. For whatever reason, sometimes pieces close to you bothering you. You're like, please get rid of that bishop, please. I don't like that bishop. So he moves the knight in turn to attack the bishop. No problem. White has to decide, do I want to let him? Because I'm going to double up my pawns if I take back. So it's not only an issue of is it an equal trade? Sure, it's an equal trade, knight for bishop. But do I want to mess up my pawns in taking back? You have to think a little deeper and realize that pawn is going to end up here. And so I'm going to have this pawn and that might be okay. This pawn can come through, but that might be okay. Yeah. White didn't want to. White said, nope, I'm going to keep the bishop and I'm just going to hit these squares. You can still castle, but I'm just going to go with that. So black castles, which I think was a good move. And now look, he has an alignment. Anytime in a straight line, diagonal or a file or a rank, anytime you have a straight line where you have two of your pieces and then one of your opponents, and if your back piece actually hits that line, right? In this case, a rook hits a straight line. A queen can hit a straight line and a diagonal. Bishops hit diagonals. So if I had a black piece and a white piece, I have the makings of a discovered attack. And black has the makings of a discovered attack because if that knight moves, that bishop is under attack. And while the bishop could just run away in this instance, and the knight, if you notice, doesn't have any good squares to hit on, right? You want a white piece sitting somewhere around here, or at least maybe a queen here so that when the knight moves, it's attacking the queen, and therefore, you have chances to win the bishop, that type of idea. But right now, the knight moves, and wherever it moves, either the bishop could take it, or it's not doing anything, and the bishop could just run away. right? So what happens a lot of times as beginners, though, we don't even see it. And the knight moves anywhere, and we think, oh, the knight moved. We deal with it. We think about that, and we forget the fact that it moved because it uncovered an attack. So it could be, sometimes you just win a piece because a person doesn't pay attention to this discovered attack. They only think about the fact, where's the knight going? What is that knight doing? I got to watch that knight. All right. But white, in turn, isn't worried about the discovered attack yet because he knows he could just go anywhere, right? He's got a lot of options. So instead, he's going to attack here, thinking that black might take, and white can take back and have a nice strong center, and this pawn might be at risk, that kind of thing going on. So black has an option, right? He's under attack. And we've said he's got 4 or 5 options, actually. There's 5 options. I always say 4. There's 5. So one, he could take the piece that's attacking. Hey, how's it going, Chess Wizard? All right, no freezing? Yes, the internet at my house is better. I go through Comcast, and they told me that they had outages and problems, and so I had some choppiness the last couple of times. Luckily, it's like it was only at the end of my last stream. So they said they fixed it. I'm hoping they're right. I'm looking at buying a new computer like you did. I don't know if you ever got yours, but I don't know if that'll solve other problems, but I bought a new router, I bought a new modem, and I brought a new extender, and they said they fixed their problem. So hopefully it's better at my end. Hopefully. I don't know why you were still the only one at times that had issues, but I'm glad you can make it. Hey. So we said when you're under attack, you could take the piece that's attacking you. So pawn takes pawn would be valid. That'd be fine. That's normally the best choice. So you could take the piece that's attacking you. You can run away, right? Can't run that way. So this is the only square you could run away to. You could put something in between, but you can never put anything in between. A pawn attacking you, a knight attacking you, because knights jump over everything, or a king attacking you, because kings are right next to you, and sometimes bishops and rooks and queens if they're right next to you. So putting something in between is not always possible. The other one that we don't talk about a lot is you could just protect the piece, right? Because it's free candy. Hey, I could protect it. I could choose not to move it, not to interpose a piece between it, not to take the piece, but protect it. Obviously, we don't want to do it here because that's a pawn for a bishop, right? We don't want to protect the bishop, but you could. And then the last one is to attack something of greater value. And that one is the riskiest one to try. And I tell you, don't do it unless you're sure to work because it's risky. Hey, light. All right, so Black did. Black decided to attack something of equal value, equal or greater value is fine, by discovering an attack on the bishop. And the thought is, if this happens, Black's fine. He could take with the rook or he could take with the pawn. But this is why it's risky, and I tell you, it should be it's not your last choice. It's the last one you could look at. And many times it's the right choice to attack something of equal or greater value, but it is the riskiest one. And so now can white do something? Can white find a move to keep this pressure and save the bishop, right? Because now it's white's turn. And white says, yeah, I could trade bishop for bishop, but why do I want to do that? I'm threatening to win a bishop for free right now. What can white do? Anybody? Can you see anything white could do? I know you guys are pretty sharp. You'll probably see something. Yeah, Chris, love it. Bishop to e7. Exactly. Well, you got some kind of symbol next to you, Chris. I wonder what that symbol means. I have no idea what it means. Maybe you could tell me. You got a symbol next to your chat name. But yeah, bishop to e7 attack. Now, white says, no, I'm going to keep attacking pieces also. Oh, gift pledge. Cool. Cool. Is that for me or for you? Just, I have no idea again. So the bishop is attacking the rook and the knight while still attacking this bishop. So no matter what else happens, you can look at it and say, okay, so now white is saying, I'm going to take a rook for my bishop. So if you decide to take here, and you might have plans of a discovered attack again, look at this. He has the option for another discovered attack. Cool, cool, Chris. Another discovered attack because now he's saying I can attack this pawn. And if white were to say, well, then I'll attack the bishop again, which is a bad move, right? There's two pieces hitting it. But black could take here, and now he's got an attack on the knight. And it's unprotected. So if you take, he takes, right? So all that could be there, but it doesn't work, right? And it doesn't work because when you take here, white could just take the rook and say, thank you very much. Because, right, a rook is better, and it'd be 3 for 5. So that isn't what happened. So what happened was black makes the mistake of moving the rook, because now, look what we have again. We still have multiple pieces under attack. What should white do here? Got the last one right, Chris? What should white do now? Chess wizard? And no, you know. So, yeah, take the bishop? Nah, if you take the bishop, he gets to take your bishop, and it's just a trade. So white wants to win material. How can white win material? Since white is attacking two pieces, he doesn't want to take this one where he just loses his own bishop. Yeah, you take the knight. So if you take the knight, right now, white just grabbed a piece. If you notice, he has a knight and a bishop still against a bishop, and it's black's turn. Now black can take the bishop or save this bishop, but he can't do both at the same time. Sometimes you could, right? Maybe if you could move the bishop someplace and say check, and then you could take the other bishop, but right now you don't have that option. So you could take this pawn if you wanted to, and you'd get a pawn for your trouble, but you're going to lose the bishop for a pawn. Or you save the bishop, and white gets to save his bishop. So you don't get both. He chose to go that way, and we have the now famous, if not infamous, triple pawn situation. Yep, you got it, Chess Whiz. So yeah, triple pawns, and the rest of the game, white is up a knight. And white is up a knight because black tried to use the discovered attack, but it was at that time when he had a piece under attack, so it was just ill-conceived at the time. But it was a discovered attack. But discovered attacks don't always gain you material, right? Sometimes they're just dangerous. So, not dangerous, but in this case, it was because he did something that didn't work out for him. So then we get to an endgame, and just a quick fun note here, the rook has really no scope, right? No place to go, can't go here. So these are the only squares the rook can go. So you don't come here, which you could, and kind of keep the rook in here. You could do that, but you can also push the rook. You could say, go away. And the reason you want the rook to go away and not put your pawn here, it's a little deep, right? We don't want to put our pawn here because we're thinking already we need to activate our knight. Our knight right now has no squares really good. But if I could put my knight here, then from here my knight hits these squares, which this square is covered, this square is covered, but oh, lo and behold, this square from here, that square is not covered. So if I can get my knight here, come here, I get to attack the pawn. Guess what? The king can't get there to protect the pawn. And the rook, the only way the rook could protect it was from here. So at this point, this is the thinking that goes through my mind when I'm playing. I need to activate my knight. I want my knight to maybe start taking off some pawns. How can I get my knight into a good square? Well, my rook is holding this, the only fully open file. I want to get my knight to here, but then where? Doesn't get anywhere because of this doubled pawn. The double pawn sometimes can be good, right? Look, these pawns attack all of these squares, right? So all of those squares, sorry, not the straight one, all of these squares are attacked by those triple pawns. So none of those squares are available for my pieces. But this square, I can come here and then attack here. The rook can't protect it, and the king can't protect it. But if I go all the way up here, the rook goes away, and now my knight, when it comes here, it doesn't have a square to go to. I need this square for my knight. I don't have this square for my knight. I don't want to get a draw because I lock everything down. We do not want to get a draw when we're up a whole piece. So instead we chase the rook. Why? Because we also don't want him pushing this pawn yet. Now we could have just went here. If he pushes the pawn, we just take it with the knight. So that's possible too. That would have been probably good too. Just bring the knight over first, and with the idea of coming here if he pushes. I decide to push, chase the rook, and then take the square for the knight. Luckily, I mean, he only had 3 choices, and this one's going to give me a tempo that I can attack with. And so he moves his rook over. I think he saw that, but maybe he's thinking he'll push that pawn. And again, I could just take though, but maybe he's thinking he'll push the pawn and try to give himself some room. Of course, I say no, because I want the square for my knight. Now I win this pawn forcibly. He has no way to stop me. And when I take the pawn again, if he pushes back, I can just take with the knight still. So that's still available because the knight's ability to run back and forth. And so now, because my knight is finally active and out into the board, now I'm ready happily to trade pieces because now my knight has an in, right? Has a check here and it could take either pawn. Which pawn would you guys want to take? B7 or F7 do you think should be the pawn that white should be after? Which one should he take? Now, hopefully he could win them both, right? But which one do you think he should be after? Yeah, F7. So F7 is available, definitely. The only reason I would, and I did choose B7, is because F7 is doubled. That pawn's not going anywhere fast. Think about it. It has to go here, then go here to get away. This pawn is backward, so it's also not going too far anytime fast. But I figure, you know what? I can get a queen faster if I take that one. This one's double. It's not going anywhere. So I chose the B. Could have went for more. Could have went here and then attacked, and I should have. From here, you get another double attack, triple attack, right? But it's a double attack. Attacking more than one piece, we just call it double attacking, even or a fork, even though you're attacking 3 or 4 pieces. So the king is in check, and there's no way for him to protect both of the pawns that are under attack. And so the king, it doesn't really matter. Could have even come up here, but he could come here or here after that, actually. That wouldn't be bad, except white would say, nope, we're going to block you out, king. Right? It wouldn't be able to, well, we want to keep the king inactive. So this would be the simple move to keep the king inactive. And then we still win one of the pawns. All right, so after this though, so what happens is just too many pawns, and finally I wake up and decide I should go after the rest of the pawns instead of just sitting there because I missed that other opportunity. Then the pawns can go down on queen. All right. Any questions about discovered attacks? They are very, very, very powerful because the piece that moves to pull back the covers can go anywhere it wants, and if it has an attack, it's powerful. Hard to see, hard to defend against because you don't realize it's going to happen. When it happens, you think that piece, all you see is the attack that piece is making, not the discovered attack also. So it has a lot of potential, but obviously it's not perfect in every situation. Pins don't always win you material, although most times they can if you have pieces that you could double up on it. We will talk about next week the double attack. And in the double attack, triple attack, right, as many as you want. But in a fork, anytime you're attacking more than one piece at a time, chances are you're going to win something, right? You're almost always looking to win material. So it's more of a, I don't know, it probably has a higher ratio of success if you have a double attack that you're going to get something for your double attack. So that's the one we'll be covering next week. And then we still have about 3 or 4 more tactics I want to cover, including removing the defender. Removing the defender is a really critical one for us to learn. And there's a lot of examples where you could do that. And so we'll be talking about removing the defender after double attacks. And then we have a couple more that I want to cover and then we'll probably get on to targets. And we're starting to get into definitely into deep middle game, how to play with tactics in the middle game. Remembering all the while not giving away any free candy. So in this situation, we had an attack on the knight, and white ignores it, giving away not free candy. Remember, it's an exchange. So it's poor exchange rate, but white doesn't care because he's going to queen, and then with the queen he'll be able to win. There's no reason to run around with the knight a couple of more moves when you don't need the knight. Let's take yet takes, and then the queen gets made, and it's going to be checkmate pretty quickly after that. All right. White moves here. Where should what? I mean, black moves here. It's white's move. Where should white move, guys? Last quiz question of the day. Where do you think we should go to start attacking black? Should we attack black? Should we push another pawn, get another queen? I see a lot of beginners get 2 and 3 queens. I think they do it because it's fun. Queen to a6, definitely an option. You get a nice check, and it pushes the king backwards, right? And if you push the king backwards and you limit his space, that is a goal of the endgame, is to limit with a rook or a queen, limit the king's space. Any other squares? Chess Whiz says queen to d8, but I think you mean e8. I think you're just looking at the board upside down. So this is e8, that's d8. So queen to e8, I'm pretty sure that's what you mean since you said checkmate. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So the pawn takes away these 2 squares, the queen covers all of those squares. So all the squares are taken away and it's checkmate. Nice. Now, Chris, if we had done this one, you'd still win the game pretty surely, but you never know, right? You might get a stalemate. You might have other problems. So yeah, checkmate, one move checkmates. We want to find those. We want to take advantage of those anytime we can. So one of the things I've talked to you guys about before is going to the puzzles, and thanks again to Chess Wizard for pointing out that under the puzzle arena, under the puzzles, you could pick a theme. And so a theme that I would pick if I was you, right? If I'm a student right now, I'd go look for themes for pins and discovered attacks because that's what we've been studying. So you can go to puzzle themes, and that's what I'm doing now. Let me share my whole screen for you. So we go to puzzle themes, and we want to search through here to see if we can find pins. I know are in here because we were doing that the other day. 92,000 puzzles with pins for you to go through. 92,000. And look, a discovered attack. So they have 89,000 discovered attack puzzles. So I highly recommend, and I'll probably do this every week, that you go out and spend 5 minutes, do 10 puzzles, do 20 puzzles on whatever theme we're teaching. And this tactical theme today, we're teaching is on the discovered attack. So go search out that one. So it's white's move, and we're looking for discovered attacks in this situation. That's that's the goal. And boy, let's see. It's always fun doing puzzles live, right? Because then you feel like, oh, I'm such an idiot, I can't find it. How do you solve this puzzle? And I'll let you guys. Oh, by the way, since they're always from actual games on Lichess, they show you all of the moves leading up to that situation, which again, I think is kind of sweet. So I see that I can come here with the queen attacking the rook. The rook can't take because then we get a check. And well, no, he can because it's not checkmate. King gets to sneak away. All right, so we're not doing that regardless. That makes life easier. It's not supposed to be a double attack. It's supposed to be a discovered attack, which normally means you align your pieces. And I'm sorry, our pieces aren't very well aligned to do a discovered attack, except for maybe taking this pawn, which would threaten the bishop twice. Let's see if that's where we're going. Nope, that wasn't it. Let's see the solution. I don't mind looking at solutions because, right, I'm trying to learn. Okay, so this is strange. As far as discovered attacks go, I don't think of it as a discovered attack at all. So that's probably why I didn't find it also. I see it as a double attack. So let me show you why. So takes here, I'm guessing the correct answer is the queen goes here after the king takes. King takes, no choice. And then you get to go here, which is a double attack. So to me, that's not a discovered attack, right? It was a double attack set up by sacking the rook for the bishop, pulling the king out into a square where I could double attack. So I didn't see that as a double attack. But the answer that they gave is after rook takes, not the king to take first. The queen comes here, king goes and hides. Now the king takes, and now look, queen can't even go there. Ha. So we're back to where's the discovered attack, right? So let's say maybe they still have a discovered attack that I don't know about. And we get knight takes. Okay. King comes all the way up, and well, now we have a discovered attack because the king came here, right? And if the knight goes there with check, we're going to win the rook. So the question is, could the king go someplace else and not fall into a discovered attack? That would be the question. If he went here, you do get that check, which might be leading to a smothered mate, right? As if the king comes back, the queen checkmates. If the king goes into the corner, then the knight says check. The king comes back, the knight says check, check. The king still has to go back. The queen gets to go here, say check. The king takes, king cannot take, the rook takes, and then the knight goes here for smothered mate. Okay, so the king cannot go here because of smothered mate. The king could go here, but then we get a fork, right? Forced fork, so he's going to lose the rook anyway. And if the king comes this way, oh wait, we didn't try this one. If he does this one, it's still a fork. And if the king go there. Okay, so if the king goes here, it's a fork, and you lose the rook. If the king goes here, it's smothered mate. If you guys need me to show you that smothered mate, let me know. I love smothered mate, and it's a tactic you should know. It's a mating net, a mating attack that you should know. So the king has to come out here, and so the king decides to come this way to put two pieces on the knight, but then we get the simple discovered check, and we're going to win the rook. Okay, so interesting. And that's the end of the puzzle. So I found it interesting because it's a discovered attack, but to me it would have made more sense to start here, right here maybe, and say, okay, now can I force a discovered attack? But it's also not just a discovered attack because it's a check that if the king went here would have been a good example of a smothered mate. If the king went here or here would have been a good example of a double attack. So to me, it's not a great discovered attack puzzle because there was a lot more involved than just a discovered attack. Let's try another one. Let's see if we could do better. So white just threatened our bishop, right? And we're black. We see that we have this going on, but I don't know that there's a discovered attack at the moment. And looking. Ah. Let's see, queens on the diagonal, bishops on the diagonal. What difficult level are you on? Oh, good question. I don't even think about the difficulty level. It says normal. So I don't know. Are you thinking that these might be a little high difficulty level? Is that why you're asking me? I don't know. I do see the bishop has, again, with the concept of the discovered attack is a piece is uncovered for the attack. And again, I don't see a simple where that situation even exists at the moment. So, I mean, my guts would say things like you take the rook, king slides over, and I still don't see where I want to do anything specific. The bishop would have to come. The bishop only has one square safe square. Everything else is attacked by a pawn. So I'm thinking we're going to end up sacrificing that bishop if we have to. But I'm also looking that the knight has checks, right? And with that check, if the pawn takes, we might be opening up a little bit. But again, I don't see a discovered attack, not readily. What do you guys think? I'm having a lousy time with this puzzle. I would love some input. All right, so the only move I see that I like even is queen here. I don't know if it works. I don't know why well, yeah, the queen can't come here to block because we would take with check, and then the king has to take back, and then they lose their queen. And that's why I'm thinking queen here, if they take our bishop, we take the rook with check, king has to take back, we take the knight with check, and the king has to move out of the back rank. Eh, I mean, it's playable. You get the rook for the knight, the bishop, and then we can always take back here. And so we even out. We're still going to lose that pawn probably. I don't know. That's the only attempt I see. And you guys aren't helping me any, so I'll give it a shot and we'll see if I'm wrong. Yep, real wrong. I'm wrong. Not real wrong. Okay, so we get the check. We talked about the check, which we said, they would take. And so what are we missing here? Queen can't come here. It's protected. Taking here, I don't see that gives us a big edge. So what are we missing? He says, oh, way over here. Wow, look at that. Look at that. Nice. Check. Can't push you could put the knight in front. You could put the knight in front though. I think what's going to happen is, even if he puts the knight in front, the idea is that if that bishop ever gets to say check, which we can almost force by coming here, if that king goes to a black square, the bishop gets to say check, giving us a discovered attack on the queen. So the way the computer says it goes is this goes here, and we still take with check. Look at this. We are ignoring our queen because we're taking with check. And he takes. And now I can foresee it already. Bishop will come here with check. King will take, and you get the queen. Very, very interesting. But again, very difficult because the discovered part of that attack doesn't come doesn't come until way over here, right? I mean, when you bring the queen over to say check this way, which you had to get the knight out of the way. Wow. Yeah, I'm with you, Chris. I would like to say I would have found that in a game. Don't think so. I don't think I would have found that in the game. But maybe if I could imagine my queen being here, maybe I could imagine it. Maybe I could find it. I would have probably, this is the best I would have found, is go there. He takes, I take, he takes, I take. The king moves off the back rank somewhere, and then I take back. The queen takes back, and I'm not doing too good. The other reason that you can think about it well, maybe I'm doing okay. He has a bishop, and I have the knight. But he has so many pawns. He's going to still have two passed pawns. I've got two passed pawns. I don't know. I wouldn't have seen it. That's wow. Try it at an easier level, maybe. Yes, when you guys, I'm encouraging you to go out and do discovered attack. Feel free to definitely change that. There's easiest, easier, normal, harder, hardest. So yeah, if you go to easiest, let's try one at easiest. But yeah, you guys feel free to try easiest or easier. You don't have to start with normal, harder, or hardest. That's kind of silly, right? So. Yeah, definitely start the easiest and work your way up. It'll also get you in the mode. There's 89,000, so whenever you get through doing enough easiest, I'm sure there's more that you can do. So this is supposedly the easiest level, and it's still supposed to be a discovered attack, and it still looks difficult. So fun. It still looks relatively difficult. Wow. Yeah. It might be just my brain is dead too. I might be tired because I'm not seeing obvious. I don't even see obvious setups of discovered attacks, which is interesting. So I think their puzzles, which is probably a good thing, is leading you to find the opportunity for the discovered attack versus just hitting a discovered attack immediately. So I see a potential pin, but my queen is under attack. I don't see that I have great squares to put the queen for this supposed discovered attack. Taking here, it's protected enough times that it doesn't seem like that should work. This is free candy, right? You take the knight, and if the rook takes here, in between move, queen could take queen, rook could take rook, and you get to take the rook back, and you're way ahead. And you could take here, the queen could take, because then, oh, if you take here, you would just lose the rook, right? A free rook. But if you take here, the queen takes first, you take with check. Queen can go back, but that doesn't work. That loses it altogether. So you're going to win back. So, I mean, just basic to me is queen takes. And it turns out that's the right move. Now the queen takes back. So I don't want to take with the right. We don't want to take with the rook because if we take with the rook, he gets the in between move of winning a rook. So we got to take with the rook first. And now we're going to take the queen. So I'm sorry, I did not see a discovered attack. Oh, maybe they're considering the fact that the rook is unleashed on the rook as a discovered attack. But to me, that's just uncovered and dangerous. Yeah, you. Hey, modern ancient thing. Glad you can make it. 11 o'clock. I have the schedule. It's on my site. it's underneath. It's underneath my title. Always 11 a.m. on Wednesday. Yeah, 8 or 11. 8 p.m. 2 times a week, Mondays and Fridays. And we missed you on Monday, and then we have 11 o'clock for this. And in fact, and I can't stay late. The 8 o'clock, I run over. I don't mind. I can run over till 10, 11 o'clock if I want to. But unfortunately, for the 11 o'clocks, I usually got to keep to an hour because of work. So yeah, again, this one as a discovered attack, iffy, right? I mean, both sides have uncovered attacks. Yes, lunch hour. Yeah, just make you got to change your lunch hour to 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock. Just change that lunch hour to 11 o'clock. So yeah, so again, not my favorite as far as a discovered attack. I'd probably go out and find my own puzzles because I'm not so far. I haven't been excited about any of these as far as discovered attacks go. Just sharing that. Wow, and I get no points for that one because it was at the easiest level, I guess. I have no idea. But yeah, so this one to me doesn't seem to be a discovered attack at all because you're not taking the knight to discover this attack. You're taking the knight and then because you're winning a piece, and then you have to trade here. It's not really to me. It's not a discovered attack. You just if you take here, you lose the exchange. You'll lose the rook for the you'll have a rook and a bishop against a rook and a rook. So not good. Anyway, all right. So use the puzzles though. I guess I'm not crazy about the discovered attack puzzles. I believe under learn practice they also have where they teach you discovered attack, and I think those are much more solid. I believe so. Let me see. Discovered attacks. All right, you get 10 discovered attacks here, and these I think are much more obvious or logical or help you more. And I would definitely do these 10 first if you haven't already. It's under learn, practice. I would do those 10, get those 10 right, and then maybe go do some puzzles. But it's a good tool to use, a good attacking way to use. Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, maybe Chess Wizard. That might be it. Chris, I know those are tough. So the first one is shows you. See, this to me is illogical. I move the knight, I can say check, and I uncover an attack on the queen. That to me is this is what I would be wanting, right? This would be the type of thing I would be looking for as far as discovered attack puzzles. Again, moving, this time getting a check, and you win the queen. So this makes a lot more sense to me to the type of thing. And again, I have a bishop lined up with a pawn. Remember, for discovered attacks, we need alignment. We need a diagonal alignment or vertical or horizontal alignment. I have a diagonal alignment where I can push that pawn, and here it's really sweet because the pawn attacks a piece and the bishop attacks a piece. Remember, the piece that you uncovered, the one that you pull back the covers on this bishop, the one that you allow the bishop to see further, that move, whatever piece it is, needs to either be taking something or attacking something to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, you still might win this piece because your opponent doesn't notice it. So imagine this rook were here instead, and you push the pawn, and your opponent goes, free candy, and takes the pawn. You go, yeah, I get a rook. Because otherwise, you didn't really, right? There was no real threat. The rook would be here, you'd push, and the rook just moves. The rook could just move, and your attack is, you have no attack. But this is the best way, right? So we attack, and it's, what is it? Remember I told you that the best way to do it is when you end up with a double attack. So with this move, we get a double attack, and that's what we want to do. We want to create a double attack. And of course, take. All right, let's see. So, okay, looks like we just lost our queen. Yes, we did. But it looks like we were trying to checkmate our opponent, which would be nice but look, we have a discovered attack. You notice, right? Alignment again. Alignment, alignment. So this alignment creates, it's called a pin. This pawn can't take. It's pinned. It can't take. But when it's your piece, not only can you move, you want to move. And we don't want to move here thinking we win the queen, because if we move here, the king just takes us off. So you cannot move where the king that's being discovered attack, you need to make sure you're not putting your piece next to that piece where it can do you damage. But we have a great place to go right here where we can attack the queen. All right. Now he says, the computer says you had better. We had better. So let's go back. Let's see if we can start that one over because he says we lost checkmate in 2. So we have checkmate in 2 moves. So sometimes, right, discovered attack, you don't have to take the queen, which is what I went for. I just said I'm going for the queen. Maybe we have better. So let's take a look. It's still a discovered attack. The knight is attacking those 2 squares, but the bishop covers all of those. The rook will cover all of those. All we need to be able to do is, it seems like, is to be able to say check here. Where can we go to say check there and not be under attack? If we move the knight somewhere, we got to think of where we want to move. Let's say we move the knight here. Okay, king can't take it because the bishop is holding it. The queen can't take it and sacrifice because he's in check. I don't like it though. We go here, the king has to go here. We could go here with check, but then the pawn comes here, we take, and the king still gets to escape over here. So we don't want the king to escape. Oh, there's checkmate in 2. Oh, knight to g7, you say? Maybe it's okay, so knight to g7. Yeah, we haven't tried g7. You don't mean g7. You don't mean g7. You're looking at this weird again. There's no g7. You mean f7. But at knight to f7 he takes. So do you mean knight to knight to g6? Yeah, knight to g6. Good job, chess wizard. Takes away all these squares, and then we get the rook, but more importantly, we get mate. So we want a rook, but more importantly, we got the mate. But yeah, the other way you want a queen, it was okay. It said it was good, but obviously not as good as a 2-move checkmate, right? We want the 2-move checkmate. Wow, this is interesting. My gut just says you come here, discovering an attack on the bishop. And why? Because if the bishop takes, right, which is one of the options, the queen takes here, checkmate. So with this move, the bishop cannot take. It's checkmate. And if he puts, let's say, he could put something in between. Could put something in between. We could take that something in between. We can even take the knight, king take back. We take with the bishop check, also threatening the bishop take, the queen take, and we get a double attack, but that double attack doesn't work as well. Oh yeah, I do like the idea of the knight here though. Oh, you can't see the letters and numbers. Okay, you should, but seriously, Chess Wizard, you should be able to figure that out anyway. Seriously, you should know the coordinates on the board without seeing the letters. Yeah, really, really. You'll get there. I know you will. So, I'm still I don't see. Is there something better? Is there something better? We could go here first and discover. Remember, the bishop is still free. I don't know if you noticed, the bishop is unprotected. This is an undefended piece, which encourages you to go ahead and do some kind of an attack like we're talking about, where you can do a discovered attack and attack that bishop because it's not protected. So my gut is there. What do you guys think? Anybody have a better idea? If the knight takes, then we get the bishop with check, and that's what we want. If the knight takes, if he pushes the pawn, I just wonder if best is just taking with the bishop, because he still can't take here. He would have to take this way. We would take that way, but then the knight does get to take at that point. You like knight to g4 also, okay. And if he blocks the pawn with the bishop, then queen takes the knight and checkmate. Yeah, if he blocks the pawn, but I'm saying he blocks here. I'm wondering what happens. Let's see if that's right first. Nope, it's we failed. It says we're not going to get the winning position, although this is looking pretty good. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. So let's back up. So our move was not the best. And what can we do to hurt him? With that bishop is still hanging. Don't like taking the pawn. Anybody else? Knight to e4. Okay, let's see. I don't think knight to e4 is the answer, but it's the answer. Who's it? What was that? Chris? Chris, the genius. Chris, nice. So it's just knight takes. Knight takes. No, not that one. Knight takes e4. Now, the reason, and I think now it should be right obvious that you get that one. I think. Yep. So what's interesting though on that one, why I did not see it. Let's go back. I'm curious because it doesn't show. It's just it automatically takes. I was wondering what happens if he takes here. What is the genius move if he takes there? I guess you could take the knight, threatening a rook, but then you could take a rook. It just doesn't seem overly clear to me that wins, right? I mean, I'm not seeing if bishop takes bishop that it's a clear win for black. So I might be, I'm obviously, I must be missing something. But yeah, that's what bothered me about the situation. I didn't see how that's a clear win. We only took a pawn. Take the knight with queen mate. Take the knight with queen mate. Oh, never mind. Okay, knight d4 stops the pawn push you were talking about. Yes, it totally stops the pawn push. I'm just curious what happens if bishop takes there. Oh yeah, I got tons of tips for you to climb higher. So when you say you start today, did you play 21 games? So if you're on Lichess, you will have a question mark after your name. So that's the only negative to, not a negative, but it's just the way it works. So if you're on Lichess, you don't get a stable rating until 2021 games in that time block. So have you already stabilized at 1350? Because if you did in one day, you must have played a lot of games already, which is good. So that's the first question. So if you have a question mark, we want to wait till you play 20 games. But then definitely every lesson I've given and every lesson I will give is to help you climb the rating ladder because it's to get you to be a better player. So yeah, every one of my streams should hopefully help you get better. So it blocked out where you've played on, but did you get a stable rating or does it have a question mark afterwards? Is the main question. But either way, okay, chess.com. So either way, the 1350 on chess.com is pretty good, I believe. But the way that you get better is, in my opinion, by playing by principles. And so we've talked about these a lot. Right now, we're working on discovered attacks and going through some puzzles for discovered attacks. But you want to play by principles. So I'll give you the quick story of it, and I will show you the principles we're working on over time right now. Yeah, I agree, Chess Wizard. So it was probably just you're ahead, you're winning, and so it doesn't care. It just seemed odd. It wasn't overly clear to me. But good job, Chris, finding knight to e4. Excellent. So before I sign off, I do 1 hour on Wednesdays, and I can't stay too much later. I'm going to stay till 12:30. Take a longer lunch than normal. I'll make up the time for work. But these are I'll share with you. And I'm going to not know how to pronounce your name, Kobacker. So these are the things that we're working on right now, and I think any one of these will help you get better. So the first question is, I would look at your games and see if you're giving away a lot of free candy, and that's number 3 up here on the list. So are you giving away free candy? If you are not giving away free candy at all, and you're noticing when your opponent's giving away free candy and you're taking advantage of it, I totally expect you'll be in the 1300s, 1200s easily with just doing that. After that, in the openings, are you developing faster than your opponents? Are you being aware of king safety? Make sure that you're developing smartly, fast, rapidly, not wasting moves, and that you are getting your king to safety. Oh, you're still on that puzzle, huh? If bishop takes g7, queen to b6 check. Okay. Okay, I probably didn't even see the queen to b6 check. If rook to f7, take the rook, or the king moves fork on knight to g3. Nice, Chris. I'll have to double check that, but that sounds good. That sounds good. I'm going through it in my mind, and I think you got it. That definitely sounds good. All right. So again, how do you get better, right? It's funny. Nobody's ever asked that question exactly, but that's exactly what all these are about. So maybe that's why no one's asked it. So we want to develop our pieces faster than our opponent and get our king to safety. Once we've got those principles down pat, we start thinking about other issues. So one is finding tactics and targets, and that's what we're working on this week is the finding the tactic of discovered attack. We worked on finding pins. So if you have a good command of the basic tactics for playing chess, you have a good command of development and king safety. You don't leave any free candy on the board. When your opponent makes a move, you think to yourself, why did he do that? And you're able to answer effectively and accurately why the opponent did the move they did. You will climb. You will climb. And then we're going to touch on more tactics, more targets. We haven't even touched targets yet. We're going to go into the middle game a little bit more, which this is all about. But the middle game, the part that we haven't even gotten close to, is setting up towards the end game. You definitely can be studying your end game. So we're going to take a week or two in the probably between openings and middle games, and we're just going to work on basic end games also. Yeah, so I actually, and you can use the Evans Gambit, and you can use whatever opening you like. Sicilian's fine for black. For my beginners, for most of them are under 1,000. So for the under 1,000 player, I don't even want them learning openings. I don't want them studying openings. I don't want them looking at openings. Oh, wow, we got rated. Thanks. That's really nice. XCTC, thank you very much. Thanks for the raid. Guys, we're not going to be here much longer, but we're just going over, I got about 10 more minutes. We're going over the basic things that you could do to get better. So we have a 1350 right now on chess.com asking, how do I get better? And he's playing openings. So just backing up, if you're under 1,000, I say don't even learn openings. Just concentrate on only moving your two center pawns when you open and develop your pieces. And so we want to develop as fast as possible. We usually like knights and then bishops and knights and then bishops. And we don't have to castle right away. We're going to develop the rest of our pieces. So I can do a knight first if I want. I'm going to get that bishop out. I'm going to try to do that. Let's say black castles. I get the bishop out and we go from there. And then I'm going to also castle on the white side, but I can pick, right, which way I want to castle. So I might put my bishop here, which is fun because if this happens, I might sacrifice and have a nice fun game. But now I can castle either side, and both players are trying to develop their pieces as fast as possible and get their king to safety. And so if I want a very dynamic game, I might castle queenside, so we're castled on opposite sides, and there'll be a lot more excitement. Or I might say, I'm just going to castle kingside and play a little bit more solid and safe. But I try not to get them to play any gambits when you first start, but you're further along. But for beginners, I try not to do any gambits and instead to focus on solid development, center pawns only. So when can you move the wing pawns? Well, you can move wing pawns if you're planning to, like fianchetto your bishop. There's a chance to move a pawn other than the center pawn. But what I see a lot of beginners do is after they do that, they don't even do what they just pretty much said they were going to do, and they'll develop the bishop out here. And now this is just a weak square. It's a hole that you created where you can't castle over there. It's, of course, worse if they do it on the king side. So we want to keep to the principles. If you have all the principles, if you know how to develop your pieces without winning the race of development, not having any of your pieces become dead and sitting there, what one of my students calls timeout, right? As long as you don't have your pieces in timeout and you're developing your pieces accurately, you're controlling the center, you understand, not giving away your center pawns, and you have king safety, you're doing that. You're not giving away any free candy, you're doing that. And you understand most of the tactics that we're talking about, then I'm great. Go learn an opening. Go pick an opening and pick the opening not based on what you see other people use, not based on what's beaten you, but on what fits your style. So that's another reason I don't want you picking an opening to start. One is most of us don't have time to memorize openings, and there's really no way around it. You need to memorize your opening moves. You need to memorize by rote. You have to know each move to your opening to play an opening safely and well. So I don't want you memorizing openings. I want you understanding principles and being aware and recognizing when those principles should be applied. But once you start studying openings and you've gotten to that point where you say, yeah, I'm going to study openings, then again, I don't usually start with gambits either. Why? Because you're giving away material to start the game. And unless you're more advanced, you really don't want to give yourself a deficit for the start of the game. Now, a gambit should be that you're going to end up getting quicker development. So again, we're back to if you understand the principle of quick development. But once you have a style and you say, well, I like being attacking, I like defending, I like kingside attack, I like chasing the king. I'm more positional. I'm okay with just having two pawns up and then, grinding it out and winning in the end. Once you know what kind of style you like, then we can help you pick the opening that meets your style. And more than one, right? So you'll pick 3 or 4 openings that match your style, and then you can decide which ones you want to keep learning. You get really good at those openings, and then you can branch out to others if you like. So there's a process that I recommend that you go through. So I hope that answered your question. Kind of went off, but we had extra time. So that's where I would go. If you're a 1350 looking to get better, you need to decide Do I know what style I like to play? Do I have all of the basic principles of opening play, the principles for mid-game play, which we haven't gone over yet? Do I understand my end games? Because if you're not good at your end games, basic end games, king and pawn, king and queen, king and rook, you want to get good at your end games. You need to study your tactics and know all those. And the opening study, you can do that later. You can do that much later, after you have mastered the basic principles. So that's what I kind of preach and push and try to get my students to do. I think it might not get their rating up as high as fast, but they will catch up to people that are like, oh, I know these two or three openings, but I give away free candy a lot still. When people play things outside of what I've studied in the opening, I get totally lost and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to play in the middle game after I get out of the opening. I've been winning games because of a couple of tricks and traps that are in the openings that I understand they don't know. So I win. I've been winning some games, and now my rating's higher. That can be dangerous in the sense that then when you need to get better to get over that plateau that you'll find yourself at, you have to go backwards and learn all those principles and tactics and stuff, and you're stuck playing that same opening, and you don't really want to change your opening because you've been playing it the whole time. So I'd rather you not get stuck in an opening. All right. Any other questions? Again, thanks XCTC for the raid. All right. That's going to do it for today. I think we went over time a little bit. Remember Friday at 8 p.m. We'll be doing Discovered Attacks for the last time this week, and we'll be doing it while playing viewers. So we've also done now where the viewers get to play each other in the tournament and try to practice the same things. And I've been disconnected, I think. So I'm reconnecting. Love it. I don't know if you guys can still hear me or if I've been disconnected from you. I hope all that great wisdom I was trying to impart didn't get totally lost. That would be sad. I don't know if it was great wisdom anyway, but it was. I was sharing my heart about how to learn and how to play better. So I hope that was all still there for you. All right, I'm going to end the stream, and hopefully you guys were able to catch the end of it. It still says it's connecting the chat. It still says it's reconnecting. Oh, joys of streaming. Sometimes things not working the way that I think they should. So maybe it's all choppy. Maybe you didn't get any of that. I'm sorry. Friday, 8 p.m. Hopefully see you there. Great to see a raid. Oh, that's great. Thanks again. Have a great day, everybody. I've got to get back to work. So hopefully you're there. Hopefully I'm there. See you guys later.